All right, hey guys, Jono here, and today I have a special guest. His name is Austin Ollar. Austin, how's it going?
Good, good.
Good, man.
Thanks for
Thanks for
having
coming. Thanks for having. So you have been officially typed by Objective Personality as an INTJ. Um, we'll go into details about that soon. But what we're going to do is, Austin and I are both in the Objective Personality class with Dave Superpowers. And right now we're going to be talking about objective personality, the universe, and how kind of just how it relates to certain patterns that we see day to day. Can we get like a brainstorming sesh slash mind blowing slash observer freakout session? I'm really excited to get into this stuff and some of the teachings that you got there, Austin. So like I said, we're going to cover off some parts of objective personality. We're going to look at some of the theories, try to unpack them a little bit, and basically just use like our NE and NI superpowers to see what happens. So I'm ready. Austin, tell me, before we get into that, tell me about your journey in typology. Like you started in MBTI, right?
Yeah, about 8 years ago, I learned about MBTI, and
Okay.
yeah, and so I was pretty intrigued because there's nothing else that really explained why I felt so different from everyone else. And I think it was like the whole NT thing going on as far as me being a systematic thinker.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really good.
And you typed as an INTP
Yeah,
originally?
initially it's typed as, well, no, like when I first took it, I got INTJ.
Okay.
And then I kept on like taking the test over a period of time, and I kept on getting INTP, INTP, INTP over and over.
Yeah.
So I thought I was INTP for about 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Damn. That's a long
When
time.
I got typed by Dave and Shannon, I just freaked out when they told me I was INTJ. I was like, what?
What? I don't have TI. I don't have any.
I know, I got all the cognitive functions wrong, and I was like 8 years of studying this. I don't know what the heck it is. So
Yeah, it's crazy how like you have that weird like freak out when you actually like, whoa, shit, I'm not actually that type. Like I don't have these functions. What the hell? It's
yeah, I
crazy.
thought they're completely wrong when they first told me. I had a panic attack. I don't have panic attacks.
Yeah, far
But it
out.
was like my whole masculine and I just demolishing. And
It's
then
crazy.
I came to terms with it after like a couple weeks.
It's like a real like wake up call. Like almost like you're suddenly becoming more conscious of yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, because like I understood the functions a particular way. And when they were telling me like the definitions are kind of off and stuff, I was like, what? Like my whole foundation, my whole understanding of personality was all off. And so I had to rebuild it from the ground up. And
yeah.
that was really rough.
Totally destroyed your inner world.
Yep. Yeah.
And your inner world's just, I know this is a bit off topic, but your inner world is double masculine, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it really, really is
Yeah.
tough. Yeah.
Same with
Like
me.
when I type someone wrong in the class, it's really, really hard, especially when I have such a deep like feeling like, hey, these are my foundations.
Yeah.
These are true. You can't like question them as much, right? Because I have all this conceptual framework around it. But then I'm wrong a lot of times. So
Yeah.
I have to go back and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So just to cover off objective personality, you got typed as an INTJ by Dave and Shannon.
Yeah.
What kind of INTJ are you?
Blast, play, consume, sleep.
Blast, play, consume, sleep. So you're not like a stereotypical INTJ. You're kind of a bit more balanced with your demons, your SE, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the more interesting parts behind all this, which I think there's a lot of truth is I don't think I'm necessarily aware of my environment as much, but I feel that gathering of SE kind of impressions or whatever, and I feel more comfortable taking in new information, maybe more so
Yeah.
than a blast sleep INTJ.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I think there's a ton of truth behind all of it. So it's amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. It's cool. So let's get into it. Like let's go through some of your teachings and your drawings and patterns, and let's see like what we can work out and how we can blow each other's minds.
Okay, sounds good. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I got it up. Awesome.
Okay, cool.
That's what she said.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of notes. Let's see if I can make some sense of all this. So the first little lesson I'll go over is like how I see the animals in OP.
Yeah.
and how it's tied to the universe and the torus shape of the universe, which is like fundamental to everything.
So just before that, like with the torus, like that's something I'm not fully aware of. Like I've seen that pattern before, but where does it come from, or like what's it based off? This image or this information?
That's a good question. I've looked at a lot of patterns and shapes in like sacred geometry, and just trying to figure out the fundamental essence of everything. And it's interesting because they say that the universe is shaped like a torus, where it's this is just the shape of the universe. It's infinity. It goes back into itself or something, and that's what it is.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. That's just what they came up with. Yeah. So yeah, this is the shape of the universe. You can Google and stuff. You'll see that this keeps on popping up. But yeah, so I've found the animals to kind of follow the patterns of the universe in an interesting way. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah, I can see it.
So let me go into, I don't think I need to show the heart. Well, the heart thing was just kind of interesting. So just as far as like the heart and its development, it kind of flows into this. And it says the heart is about 100,000 times stronger electrically and up to 5,000 times stronger magnetically than the brain.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then as far as these patterns, this is really fascinating to me, right? Because you can look at everything in the universe, like see the world.
Yeah.
Look at trees development. Look at just anything. Orange, tomato.
Yeah.
It all kind of follows this sort of flow of energy.
That the tree is specifically interesting to me. I saw something recently, a post on it about like, about your, depending on how deep your roots are, the better like your fruits, or like the better you'll flourish. I thought that was an incredible like analogy, or just incredible way to look at life, like just to really like solidify your roots and to grow yourself, to therefore like be able to produce more for others.
I love that. Like the deeper your roots, the greater your fruits. Yeah, that's really cool. And even like the body, right? They talk about like the butt and then the mouth and top and
yeah, it's like a cycle, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. So anyway,
as long as it doesn't come out and then go back in, that's the bad part.
I know, right? Oh my God. That would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
So they're kind of rough drawings. They're not perfect by any means, but I just kind of wanted to share them. So following the pattern of these shape of the universe, we can look at sleep.
Yeah.
And sleep, like with DI, the way I see it is kind of in the middle.
So that's like the DI is like the FI and the TI, right?
Yes.
FI or TI. Yeah.
DI or TI. And then OI is kind of like in the center as well. Like it's a zone. Like the OI and the OE is kind of like another zone on the outer edges. But the decider, it's sort of energy flows upwards and then it kind of goes back downwards. And then it sort of flows that way. There's a universe GIF like that showed like how the energy is kind of expanding and it comes back in, expanding and it comes back in. And so that's the way I kind of see it.
Yeah.
And then and the yellow is kind of like consciousness, right? Consciousness is like focused here, and then it kind of grows it. Do you have any questions around that, or?
Yeah. So OI is obviously like observations, right? with OI, it's like kind of it's observations that you've already consumed that are kind of like in your mind already, like personal. Yeah. Okay. So and that the internal observations and the internal feeling or thinking is kind of just like cycling around and trying to like work things out. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, like the way I kind of see it is say if I'm like FI, right, and I'm in sleep mode, then in essence, I would kind of be reflecting and growing and thinking back on the things I value, the things that I love.
Yeah, right. So yeah, it ties back to your like internal decider, and then it kind of almost helps it grow, right? Like
yes, yeah. It's interesting because the way I kind of see it is sleep and play animal, or kind of like growing the growth animals. In
wow, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the consume and blast are kind of like the information movement.
Yeah, like the flow of information.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So it's like growth. and then like movement of information.
Yeah. So with sleep then, so for me, like my sleep is SI or FI then SI. And the way that I see that is like I'm constantly, when I'm just zoning out and when I'm actually like in deep thought, I'm very often finding myself kind of going back in time, just thinking about past situations, thinking about like, and I can relate it to be SI because I'm kind of remembering some of the sensory that happened or some of the sensory objects or feelings, not feelings, but sensory, some of the senses, right? I can just remember the senses of like a past event, the touch, the smell, the feel, what I saw, the colors and all that kind of stuff. But also I remember events in like details, like I can remember conversations, I can go back and and I think what I'll do is with my FI, I'll actually just reevaluate like a lot of the situations that happened in the past. And I'll kind of then determine, like, for example, if I've had a conversation with someone that was maybe heated or there was a bit of weird tension, I'll like replay that scenario in my mind. And my FI will just try to reevaluate, like, how genuine was I? Like, was there anything that I missed from this person? Was this person being genuine? And I'll try to just like really kind of not triangulate, but try to like pinpoint like what kind of feelings they were giving off or what kind of attitude they had. And that's kind of where that cycle comes in. It's because like just constantly replaying it, just rethinking over it. And I think where consume comes in is if there's any missing parts or if there's something I'm not too sure about that conversation, I'll go back and can try to just ask questions or can just consume, just to just fill in those missing pieces of information to then just reevaluate how I felt about that situation. Does that make sense?
When you're doing consume though, are you saying that you're doing that in your own mind without external feedback or information or anything coming in?
No, I think so. I think when I like, if I need to so with sleep, and if I'm trying to reevaluate a past situation, and if I'm not sure about something, I will then have to go and consume and ask questions to fill in the gaps, like to fill in the missing SI. If that makes sense.
But would you source that information from your own self or from an external source?
Oh, from an external source. Yeah, sorry, that's what. Yeah. So I'd have to go maybe back to the person and just ask them like a random question.
Oh, I see.
Just to like kind of reshift like my opinion on that situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Cool.
I mean, I think for me, a lot of times what I do, because I'm Savior and is I'll go back and try to go into sleep and like do sleep processing in order to see if I'm on track as far as having my values on board for my future vision.
Wow.
Right. And tying that into my future as much as possible. Like,
that's interesting.
I resonate with it.
So your sleep, do you find yourself constantly trying to like envision the future or like your pathway where you're going?
Yeah, I do. But I have a hard time actually associating, because I'm sleep last.
Yeah, so true. Okay.
Yeah, I have a hard time really getting this on board sometimes, where I get so intrigued and interested by the DE, like my TE.
Yeah.
I'm constantly following it. I'm like, whoa, this new idea, this thing over here, this thing over there. But how deep is it? How deeply rooted is it in my FI? Right. And that takes a lot of extra, reflection, understanding, deep trying to.
Yeah. Okay. So I wonder, like, I wonder with sleep, like, and this kind of this pattern, if like someone that's high in sleep has a much, like if the pattern would be larger, or if someone with smaller who has like low sleep, it would be like a smaller kind of pattern, not as intense or something, or the energy is not as strong.
Yeah, I think it's more or less like having that growth there, right? And I think as like maybe DI grows or something, it's easier to reference because it's larger potentially. Okay. So you're kind of used to that sort of pattern, that sort of flow of energy like that, right? And so you go to look in certain places in your psyche, and then you see that, and you're like, if your sleep preference, you're going to focus on those things more, and they're going to grow more. And then when you reference those things again in the future, they're going to be more like frontal focused, right? They're going to be more front facing versus like being in the background. And for me, like sleep's in the background a lot because I have play and all this other stuff going on in the forefront.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So, okay. And then like, I already explained kind of these, didn't I? Or was that in our last?
No, we talked about on sleep. What about play? Let's just see if we can unpack that one a bit more.
Yeah. So play, the way that I see it is, so sleep is in the centerpiece of sort of this, right? And then play, DE, I see it kind of as being on the outer edges
Okay.
of this torus, right? Where the lights and the energy is sort of flowing out throughout the outer edges. And so when you're in play, you're sort of going back and forth between the DEs. So it's kind of like, hey, consciousness, this yellow spot is kind of like on one DE, and then it kind of moves to another DE and then moves back and forth. And then this is sort of like transference of energy or growth from like one DE to another, just seeing which like DE is more relevant, more valued, more, you know, more whatever that you want. And sort of OE, the way I see it, is kind of like OE's is the zone. It's like in the background. It's in this general area, right? So
right.
Yeah.
Could you consider OE like almost like a filter? So like you've got these two DEs going on, like someone is communicating in TE, the other person is communicating in TE or FE, but there's like this filter between both of them. Like one of them is like SE dominant, the other one's NE dominant. And this is kind of this filter. So the NE dominant is like receiving the SE, but it's like through a filter of NE, if that makes sense. So it's kind of just picking up the same data, but it's like it's tracking different points or different patterns.
That's how I would probably explain it, right? It's like having a filter between, because with OI and OE, that's the way I would kind of explain it, is like those are kind of like the filters in which the DEs or DIs or whatever communicate with each other. These are just like filters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, and then let me see if I can go into play a little more detail.
Yeah, sure.
I have another little thing on it. Sorry, my drawings are kind of up here. Okay, so rough drawing of animals. Yeah, let me go into play right here. This is a really crappy drawing, but
looks great.
like 2 dots or something.
Looks like did you draw that in kindergarten or something, or?
I know, my handwriting is so bad. No,
the simpler the better. It makes it easy to understand.
Yeah. So the larger circles are kind of like the DIs, and then that little oscillation of DEs back and forth is that's kind of
right. Yeah. Okay.
So you can be interacting, interchanging, exchanging DEs with someone else. So say the second, this torus is like someone else, and this torus is yours.
Yeah.
And so you guys would be like, that's kind of perceived how, hey, like this is my DE interacting with another person's.
Damn. Dude, this is incredible. Like this is making me think of like how atoms and stuff like interact, and like going down to the like molecule level of how we're all formed and we're all connected. You know what I mean? Like,
I know,
dude, It's so deep. I love it.
It's there's so much to it. There's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think what's going on. And here's another way to look at it. I found this image online.
Oh, cool.
So kind of two toruses influencing each other. So this is where it could get slightly confusing. I have to explain it. Let me X out of these. So, okay. So with this, the way I see it is that, because you know how like with this image, right? Like this is the main torus. This is the main thing. DI is in the middle, and then the energy flows like this. But on the outer edges, I think that every decider has its own like torus to it, right? Okay. And I think the DI one is like it has like this really large torus, and the DE ones are like smaller. They're like smaller, like little mini kind of toruses on the outer edges. And so that's kind of what I see as far as the two toruses influencing each other, like with the play animal right here. Yeah. You have like DE on the outer skirts of this, but you have them like little mini toruses like influencing each other. And sort of like, and it's kind of like in that drawing I just shared. So it's kind of like they're reflecting and moving back and forth of energy flow between one torus to another. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah,
just like just pinging back information.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
So that's great.
How I see that energy
awesome.
Flow. And these, yeah.
So consume and blast. Like, how does that play a part in all this?
Yeah. So these ones are a little, I think, harder to explain. I think part of it is because I'm not like 100,000% clear on it. But the way I kind of see it is that consume is sort of taking in new information for self, right? Yeah. And that new information that's taken in, I don't really think that it's OE necessarily, because OE is just like open space. It's like a filter or a zone. Yeah, that's right. OE is just literally the filter. You're not actually taking in OE. OE is just like your interface for like bringing the information in, right? That's the way I see it.
That's great. Yeah, and that makes total sense. Like, so you got these DE things coming in. It's like someone is DEing at you. So someone is just talking at you in TE. But if you're SE dominant, like you're taking in all the facts.
Yes. You know what's so interesting about this is I think that everyone perceives the world to be in a certain way depending on their function stat. So for me, if I'm DI, FI, and then my DE is say TE, then when I'm consuming information and stuff, I perceive that to be like TE coming in an unconscious way. Because like consciousness, yellow light is not on the DEs. It's like just this vague kind of like information and stuff, but it's like, it's perceiving like a kind of TE coming into my FI.
Yeah, wow.
Like people have TI and then like FE on the outer skirts.
Wow.
It's kind of something along those lines, right?
Dude, this is awesome. This is great. This is great. Great stuff.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, DI is partially conscious. It's kind of like you're passive with consuming animal. And, you know, with like, you know, sleep, I think you're passive as well. Play, you're active. Blast, you're like active. And yeah, just new information, movement in, and that's consumed. And then as far as blast is kind of like the pushing or moving out of, you know, information that was kind of closer to DI or closer to self, and you're kind of sharing that or expressing that or moving it out to the tribe, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's like DEs for tribe, right? You're trying to spread that out and share that. Let me go back to my, because this will make more sense if I kind of use this image here, I think. Okay, so if you look at the tree, I think like the bottom, I kind of see that as being, say, consume.
Yeah.
Right? That movement of information from the outer skirts to the inner.
Right.
Yeah. And then like blast is kind of like the branches.
Yeah, it's like blast is like giving like bits of fruit to people. So here, have a piece of fruit, have a piece of fruit. Oh, and people are like, oh, that was a nice piece of fruit. That was really good.
Exactly.
You know what I mean, just like small like nuggets of information coming out.
Yes. Yeah, and it's like the tree is giving its fruits off, like you said, to the earth, to the humans, to whatever. And that's kind of the analogy you can use for this. So it's like consume and then upwards and then blast. Yeah, it comes out the top.
That's so cool. With back on the other image with the sleep, play, blast and consume. Yeah, with blast. So it's coming from the DI, right? People are blasting from their TI, FI. Where does how does the OI come into this picture?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've kind of like thought this through, and the way that I kind of see it is that like let's say here, like with the tree, I think like OI is kind of the zone in the inner, and then like the OE is the zone in the outer. So it's kind of like the pushing of DE outside of the OI realm into the outer sphere. And
okay.
So, and honestly, that's where I'm not like 1,000% sure as far as, because you think that, okay, well, it pushes it out into like OE in a sense, the OE zone. But I just think that, you know, it's kind of,
yeah. Maybe it's the way that it's being shared. Like if we were to use the analogy of the tree, like, so I'm blasting, right? I'm sharing information, but I'm sharing it in an organized way. So it's information I've collected, but I've also then like, I've organized it in my mind, and it's kind of branching out, if that makes sense. So look at it as a tree branch. Like the tree branch could be like OI, right? As in it's like it's organizing to get out these leaves and this fruit in a certain specific way.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
No, that's how I see it. That's how I see it from those images.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Let me see. So I have some more. Here's another one. This is really interesting. So I'm going to go into some stuff where I think is really fascinating. So when we talk about like blast and consume, I think that if I'm a lead blaster, like Savior Blast, I'll be trying to move other people's like toruses so that they can consume it. So like here, I say I'm the bottom torus, I'll be like blasting. So I'll be like kind of spreading out, expressing and sharing that information. And we talk about blast being like sort of controlling and directing the tribe. And I think it can be translated as kind of trying to move that torus in the right position so they can take in our blast, so they can consume it.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. I'm kind of like talking a little bit about like trying to control the tribe in a way, maybe because we think about like a commander as far as like trying to gather and organize his troops or something.
Right.
And trying to get them all like together, get them all so they could take in my blast. So I'm gonna gather all these people around me. I'm gonna do all this stuff, and then I'm just gonna blast at them so they can actually consume my blast.
Right. Okay. I got it. I'm with you.
It's so,
Yeah, I love the analogies. Analogies like kind of really help it tie all together. And
yeah, I need to work. Yeah, I'll try to work on analogies.
That's fine, man. It's all good.
Yeah, no, okay. And so I wanted to do a little drawing because this would probably, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just gonna show you. This is one of the things I've been thinking about so much as far as trying to figure out why is it that I am going to sleep mode when I blast? Because I'm like, it's just like, I didn't understand that I'm not good at using sleep. I have to really consciously work on it. But when I blast, I feel like it gets me in tune or in touch with what I like, who I am, like all these things. It's amazing.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So let me draw. Okay. So let's say you have like a torus or
a white torus on a white background.
Okay.
Nice.
So here's a little torus. Okay. It's just like really rough.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's say if I'm blasting outward. So let me go here. Let me do a little like lines. Okay, so I'm like blasting outwards, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the tree thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm blasting outwards. But what's really fascinating is that the motion and the sort of configuration of sleep, what it is like, hey, I'm blasting, I'm moving energy outwards, but with sleep, it sort of flows back around and comes back up.
Wow.
So if we did that, say like an arrow like this, like see how it would go?
Yeah.
It blast triggers sleep.
Damn, that's so cool.
So that's, I have to like, this has to be it. Because I have been trying to figure this out for a long time. Like, why is it that
the way you're describing it, like, it just made like sense instantly.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. So
I wonder if it's because it's tied to like the OI. Like, because you're activating your OI in order to share the information, it kind of triggers like the ability to then go into sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember Dave actually said this in one of his Q&As. He said that you can actually get into blast like by triggering your play. I was like, that's an interesting way to put it. He described like a rocket launcher, right? Like with a grenade launcher, the grenade like pops out, and then the rocket engages and then just launches. So he kind of used the analogy of like plays, like just popping out and just using the energy to kind of move and just get yourself going. And then once you've got that energy going, you can then like give a steady blast. So I kind of relate that similarly because you're using with play and blast, you're both using your extroverted decider. So if you're activating your extroverted decider, that you can then go into blast. Similar to how you're saying you can go into sleep through using blast, because sleep and blast both use OI. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And honestly, though, we don't know exactly how play would look like and moving into sort of blast and triggering that. I mean, maybe if it's wearing on the outer skirts and somehow it goes to the inner and then it goes back to the outer or something.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
So what I'm trying to think of is if like, maybe you can like get into other animals by using other animals. Like for example, I think I could probably get into sleep by using consume as well, because I'm consuming information, consuming. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, I'm activating my FI, and therefore I'm going to start thinking of recalling past experiences and then getting into sleep mode.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense because, if you have the torus thing and then you're consuming information and it's going upwards, right? So information is coming up, and then what it does is that it can then trigger sleep, which sleep goes all the way around.
Yeah.
And then there you go.
That's cool. That. Okay, so let's like talk about some examples then. Like you're saying that when you use blast, it kind of gets you into sleep. So that's something you've obviously noticed in yourself, right?
Yeah, so much so. Yeah, like information. This is gonna sound really foreign to you, I think, because you're blast last, right?
We'll see. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I am. I'm
Yeah.
blast last. Yeah, yeah.
Well, the really fascinating part with me is that things don't feel real until I actually externalize it. A lot of
Right.
times, like like it's almost like a whisper. Like these things, like if I do sleep, I do consume. It's just like the magnitude or the volume of that energy is low.
Okay.
But when I actually externalize it, when I like try to do all this stuff, then it actually becomes more real. Then it actually feels more solid to my values, to whatever I'm doing, right?
That's
So
interesting.
it amplifies my energy.
This is a simple way to put it, but I heard someone on a TED Talk ages ago. They said something about like, if you want to hear what an extrovert is thinking, just listen. If you want to hear what an introvert is thinking, ask. So it's like extroverts think externally,
Wow.
right? And like what you said is like, because you're getting the information out, it's like that's your way of thinking. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Not necessarily trying to tell someone something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
That is gold.
you're throwing the information out, but it's not necessarily always to teach something or to like tell someone something. It's just for you. It's just your way of thinking.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's one of the things I really look up to for people who are save your sleep, because I will like literally have to sometimes throw information out there in order for me to get more clear on my information.
Yeah.
And if I try to do it all on my own, it's so slow, it's so monotonous. It takes like 10 times the amount of time and energy.
Yeah. Because you're forced into your demon, and that for you, that's a struggle, right?
So much.
Whereas
yeah,
for me, it's the complete opposite.
I know that's because like going through these drawings and trying to figure all this stuff out, this is a ton of like kind of the sleep, the kind of just processing on my own. And if I have someone else to like bounce it around with, like right now, this helps a lot. This goes a lot faster for me in processing, understanding new things rather than trying to do it on my own.
Yeah.
So
just random thought, like these images look like vaginas.
I know it's. Oh, I got to change the screen.
Sorry, I had to say it. It can't be unseen now.
Look at button.
Yeah. So, so blasting activates your sleep. So, okay, when you're actually talking to someone, or if you are giving a teaching, do you kind of find yourself like you're doing a bit of sleep while you're like talking or teaching something? Like you said, you feel a bit disconnected, right?
Yeah, I feel disconnected, like from myself in a sense, if I'm not playing information, just because,
Right, so you feel disconnected when you're not displaying information.
Yeah, when I'm not sort of expressing or releasing or letting out this information all the time, then I feel
disconnected from your body. Is that what you mean?
In a sense, yeah. I'm so much of a tribe and external person that I lose the sense of myself, like my values, my worth, like some of these things, they get out of touch if I'm not able to just express myself some way, somehow.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, journaling, I've been doing a good amount of journaling, and that really helps me put it onto paper. It doesn't always have to be someone else, but I have to like let it out. All this energy needs to come out some way.
That's it. You need to let it go. Yeah. That's the best way to put it. Because I'm gonna use my girlfriend as an example. Where so she's play blast, sleep consume.
Oh wow.
So similar to you, but the blast. Oh no, she's an extrovert, but and she works from home a lot. So she's kind of isolated from the tribe, and I work in an office environment, so I'm always around the tribe. For me, it's draining. I get home, I'm super drained, and when I get home, like she's just full of energy because she's been like in sleep mode all day, and she just needs that tribe interaction. She needs to be like pinging back and forth. So it's kind of interesting to see like the energies and how they play out, and like you really need to like if you're in the extroverted spectrum, you really do need to just constantly be like using your energy to like get information out all the time. Yeah. Whereas me, like consume sleep, like I'm really good at like just working things out and just unpacking my thoughts just by myself in a quiet room, just like with pen and paper or something. Yeah. And then I'll share it.
That's really, I mean, my dad is the same way. As far as I typed him as like sleep, consume, like, play blast or blast play. But he is so much of like a kind of lone wolf. Like he does his own thing and he works on his own. He figures things out on his own. And he's really efficient, really effective on his own.
That's cool.
I feel like I need to have more external stimulus, more interactions, more like brainstorming type stuff in order to really get momentum, really get things going.
Yeah.
So as far as being like really self-sufficient and really effective on your own, like I struggle a little bit in that realm. Like if I'm just doing things on my own all the time, like I can do it a good amount, like a little bit, but yeah, it depends.
Yeah. So it kind of like just to tie it back up to like sleep and blast, like it kind of makes sense. So like you sharing your information out, then gives you the like capacity to sleep.
Yeah. It's like in the moment, because sleep is so unconscious to me that when I'm blasting, and I'm like, oh, whoa, like that thing I just said was really insightful, or that thing I just said was really like.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're reflecting on what you said.
Yeah.
And it's building up your FI.
Yes.
So interesting.
Yeah.
It's great.
Really interesting. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the introduction to the animals. That's pretty much most of what I have for that.
Nice.
Now, I have some little drawings on the function stack, so let me X out of this stuff. Now, I really like that little like tree drawing thing. That was pretty
cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Signify, basically just like the pattern, or like signifies life, basically.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, the universe kind of follows these patterns as far as the vortex, the spiral. This
reminds me of Game of Thrones. Like, I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but
no.
Damn. So I feel sorry for you.
I know. Everyone talks about it.
Yeah, I don't want to go on a super deep tangent, but yeah, Game of Thrones, there's this like recurring pattern that's like basically like a spiral like this, and no one kind of understands what it is. And we're in the final season right now, and there was an episode where we saw the pattern again, and no one knows what it means. So like I'm waiting for some kind of mind blowing like explanation soon, and that this just reminded me of it.
And it's in the last season.
Yeah, so we're in the last season, and we like literally the pattern just showed up from this basically from these zombie type people. They created the pattern, but we don't know why or what it means. So it's super. Like, I'm so curious to figure out what it is.
So it'll be revealed.
Maybe it's going to relate to like OP and like the universe and everything we're learning about right now.
Okay, so that's a little spiral thing, and then so that's just a recurring pattern in the universe, and it's just another one. You can even see like the shape of your ear is following some like golden spiral thing.
Yeah.
Yin yang, the consciousness, Milky Way galaxies, the heart, fruit, unity, all that stuff. So let me what's this? Okay, so it's really interesting. I don't know how Dave and Shannon came up with some of their stuff. I really don't. But I really like their drawing, the main like function stack drawing, because I think that's fundamentally kind of what it is.
So the F1 is like the savior function, and F2 is second savior, and then F3.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. So is it, from this perspective, is it like, for example, if this was a ESTP, is the first one SE, the second one TI, and then FE? Or is it actually looking at it from the savior? So if it was a jumper, would F1 be SE and F2 be FE?
It would literally just follow like the drawings that Dave and Shan have. So yeah, they would be like a jumper. So it'd jump like F1 to F3.
Okay, cool. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Let me just make sure I pull up this universe drawing so I can kind of reference. No, that's not it. This one, I think. Yeah. So again, it's following the universal kind of pattern here. So you could kind of look at it as, on one part of this, you're going inward, and the other part of the universe, you're kind of going outwards, right? And so that's kind of how I see this drawing. It's like, okay, you're looking inward into that torus pattern.
Yeah.
And it creates this vortex. And so F1, like Savior 1, for example, that's where it's the most consciousness is, right? So you're completely immersed in it. You can't even really see it. And then like when you get into F2, you're kind of like, you have a little bit of shadow in there, right? So you kind of are unconscious and slightly conscious of it.
Yep.
And then like F3, and it depends on which F2 or F3 is your saviors. Or like also if you're doubling up, if you're double activated on a function, that changes
Yeah.
things a little bit. That changes the size of these circles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like for me, F1, because I'm single activated on NI, this would be maybe a little like smaller, but it would be completely like there would be no darkness, no shadow or anything because I'm unconscious to it.
Okay.
So then function 4 over here is like really there's a lot of shadow because it's small, and this is like a single activated example kind of.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So this basically is like how conscious we are to them, right? Like, so the top one is like more in the consciousness, and the bottom one's a bit lower.
Yes. Yeah, it's the spreading of your consciousness to these functions. And
interesting.
For some reason, I mean, things kind of, I don't know how Dave and Shannon came up with this, like as far as the stack and the way that they have functions looking this way.
Yeah.
But this is what I found, right? This is kind of after looking at a lot of drawings and stuff, I'm like, well, I think they're onto something. I think they have.
Yeah, that's interesting you put it this way, because like from my perspective, I've actually seen it like in the reverse. Yeah, it's strange. So from this drawing, you're saying that NI for you, you're very conscious of the NI function. Is that what you?
Yes. Yeah. I'm basically like unconscious to it because there's so like I'm immersed in it. Kind of.
Yeah. Okay. So from the way that I've seen it, and maybe it's just the perspectives we're seeing it at, but for me, like NE and FI are my saviors, double activated. My demons are TE and SI. So the analogy I'll use and like why I think we're unconscious to the savior functions is because like from birth, right? We're very unconscious beings. We kind of grow up, we're babies, we're just learning how to do life. And so the F1 and the F2, we're kind of, that's like part of our core personality, right? From when we're born. We grow up, we learn, we keep learning, and slowly, like over time, like by the time we're like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the lower functions then start to develop, right? And in that time, like when we're, older, we're teenagers, we're starting to become more aware of ourselves. And because we were born, like, and this is totally like a hypothesis, like a theory, right? Because we're born with like our saviors, like NE and FI, we're not really conscious. And because we're not conscious from birth, we're not really conscious of what we have, like what parts we have, right? But as we get older, like, you get to puberty, you get to like your teenage years, you're a lot more conscious of yourself, of how you are. And these smaller parts, like my SI and my TE, are starting to like show up in my life. Like they're starting to emerge. And therefore, like my focus is there on these like new things, like this new SI, this new TE. So I'm not as aware of my NE and FI, but I'm more aware of my lower parts. So it's kind of like looking like you're looking down at yourself, like you're standing up, you're looking down, you see your feet type thing. There are these new like small parts that are showing up in my life. And as you get older and older and older, like you're kind of seeing like the SI and the TE show up. And like Dave and Shannon use the analogy, like we kind of, we get very interested or curious about like the lower functions. And that's why like a lot of people mistype. You've got, a lot of people that are, like for my example, myself, like NE dominant. Well, I thought I was actually very like SI or very OI minded. Like I thought I was very like structured and systematical. I thought I was very organized. And that's kind of way I've seen it. Like, and that's how the analogy I've kind of used in myself is that like we're more aware of our demons because they've just kind of popped up as we've grown up, like towards our teens. But when we're kind of blind to, the saviors because they've been there since birth. It's like the analogy is like, when the first time you hear yourself on video, you're like, holy shit, do I sound like that? That's the kind of analogy. You don't really listen to your voice the same way you don't really like see or listen to your savior functions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's just the way that I've seen it. Like it may not even be accurate. Maybe it's just me, but.
Well, no. I think that as we grow, like what you're saying, as far as kind of discovering those demons, right? As far as like being interested, being curious, and not being fully conscious of them, we're really, really young.
Yeah.
And then, but in the beginning, we tend to be, we're like very unconscious in the beginning, right? But we're kind of exercising and using I guess, like our saviors a bit, like unconsciously. And then as far as like we're getting older, then we can kind of see, I guess, like our demons more, right? They're a little more conscious, maybe a little more light associated with those things, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like around puberty or something, like we become a little more like conscious of like, you know, the spectrum of our psyche or something, right?
Yeah.
Like a little more light or a little more whatever, so that we can actually see more of like what's actually going on, like what's down the road, what's down the line.
Exactly. And like maybe as well, like it also could depend on type, like because like I'm OE savior. OE is like, because it's like we said, it's like a filter, right? So it's not really something that we kind of see, but for you, you've got like you got blast as a savior. So
Yes.
like you're probably more conscious of that because it's more like a physical thing you do. It's like an external, it's an extroverted function.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's probably why you are more conscious of that, whereas I'm not as conscious as having like a filter as a savior. Maybe.
I think though, as far as our animals, I think that we would all be fairly conscious of, you know, like the top ones, especially, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean,
like, last play, like, yeah, I'm very conscious. Consume, yeah. Sleep, you know, more unconscious of.
Yeah. Maybe.
But yeah, I think like the way I kind of see it with the functions here is that the saviors are kind of like the creator, like the things you're creating with, and then the demons are kind of like the things that you discover over time. I always associate the saviors being the peaks, and the demons being like the valleys. Like you're looking down in the valleys of like peaks, like as mountains, and valleys is like, you know, deep down into the like that. If that makes any sense, like kind of as analogies, but
yeah, definitely.
And then, yeah, like Savior 1, we're definitely really unconscious of. And then over time, we kind of grow more consciousness and spread consciousness across all the different functions, right? And try to have that function flow where, you know, the lights sort of spread out across, you know, all of them, right? You're in a flow state. It's flowing through. There's no blockages or anything.
That's great.
And what's really interesting is that in order for us to actually like be effective in the real world and to actually be in a flow state, we have to have like all the different functions on board. And I think a lot of times, like, we're just really super unconscious behind like having all these functions on board. Like if I'm using my NI all the time, but then it meets the SC needs, then I don't even have to like, I'm just doing my thing, right? And I'm almost accidentally meeting SC needs. Does that kind of make sense? How it's just like,
yeah, okay. No, I 100% get it now, the perspective thing. Yeah, so it's like if you're just constantly living in your saviors, in your consciousness, you're not like activating your lower unconscious functions. Like for me, like, yeah, I do see what you mean now. So like for me, like with the demon SI and TE, like I'm kind of like putting off, just ignoring like a lot of the routine I need to be doing into my life. And therefore like I'm not in a good flow state. I'll just be like stuck in this, just wanting to consume and just think and just consume all day. Wanting to stay in my consciousness. Whereas I have to get out of my consciousness and get into like, you know, the routine, the organization type thing in order to then be, to flow.
The interesting thing is, like, at least for me, is I noticed that if I have my FI on board, because I'm sleep last and my FI is third, it's like, it's almost more of a demon for me than my like SE.
Yeah, because it's not activated really. Like it's
like missing.
Well, that's like me and my TE, because my TE is like not activated. My SI is activated.
Oh, that's true.
So it's kind of similar.
That's true. But like I noticed that if I have my FI on board, like if I pay attention to my FI before I jump into things and I really take that into account, then it helps a lot more in making like everything flow through. And I don't have to pay super high like conscious attention on all these other things. It's just
that's interesting.
That FI is like the secret key.
For me, like, to get into this flow.
Like everything flows mostly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So that's that. So yeah, it's really cool how Dave and Shannon actually like kind of figured out their stack thing like that. So
yeah, like they just, it's interesting. I love hearing about how they've just kept unpacking like all this. Like I'm thinking like, when are they going to get to 1024? Like it has to happen eventually. There's got to be like more minute differences between the 512s and things that they can track, but it's going to unpack forever. And then we'll eventually figure out that there's 7 billion different types. And we're just like, oh, okay, we're all unique.
Yeah, it's, you know, that's the really cool thing I think about all this is that's one of the reasons why I'm so motivated to become an operator, is because you know, once you sort of figure out and you get all these people in these docs, and you have like 50 people of the same 5/12 type, and you have a whole bunch of those,
Yeah.
then you can be like, okay, what are the patterns within the patterns? Like, what am I seeing?
Yeah.
And
Man.
then you're like, okay, here's the next layer, here's the next layer, and they should be
Yes.
unraveled and unpacked.
Yeah,
And
man.
that's what
I'm so like, I would love to like just look at and analyze the data they've got just to see like the patterns, see like what's clustering, what people are like, you know, just seeing the patterns within the patterns, like you said, like,
yes.
like, okay, you got all these types. Okay. You got like 30 of this one type. Like, let's look at the patterns within those and see like what similarities there are, what differences there are.
Oh my gosh. I know. That's
Crazy, huh?
Yeah. So, okay. So that was the function thing that, so let me go into talking about this. Let me see. Okay, so this is the whole like, you know, torus thing where it's like vortex in, vortex out. And you know, there's drawings as far as like the torus having like blast being on the bottom part or blast being on the top part. I don't think it fully matters because I've seen a lot of them where it's like blast is kind of on the top, like the arrows going out. So it's just like the general idea though, is like there's, you know, one triangle, one part of it is in and one part of it's out, vortex out. And the way I kind of see it, let me see if I can bounce around real quick. Okay, so this, let me try to tie this in so it makes sense. Actually, concrete drawings.
Awesome.
So this isn't like a perfectly accurate drawing, but you can kind of look at the NI, right, where it's looking inward. And it's kind of like looking inward into the torus, right, where NI kind of looks like that. This is a drawing I shared in the group before.
Yeah, it looks familiar. I thought I've seen this before.
And so that's kind of like here, right? Vortex in, NI at the top. Right. You're looking inward.
Yeah.
Then the vortex out is like the NE, right? It's appearing. It's sort of like coming at you. Okay. And there it is, coming at you, vortex out. Consciousness on the outer skirts of the torus. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to go back to the NE drawing? Okay, so you got two people looking out. One's one's introspecting, and it's pulling all the patterns and trying to narrowing it down, right? So it's using all the SE that it's gathered and then narrowing it down into the self.
Exactly. And one thing I just want to mention with this drawing, it would be more accurate if I had this guy on the right being on like the left side and switching them.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Left, him on the right. So it follows this pattern, inward, outward.
Yeah. Okay. So the NE leaps sideways. So it's information that's coming outwards. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's coming at you, and then it's kind of NE appears where it's like, you know, multiple universes, quote unquote, right? So these arrows kind of go outward to a whole nother set, like a whole nother context.
Yeah.
Another context is appearing.
They've all got their own. Yeah, they've got their own pathways that could lead off. It's like branches, like a tree, right?
Yeah, it branches off different. Yeah, exactly. And I is like you've got the same like tube, the same pipe. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So let me. What was this? Okay. Yeah. So this is the whole thing I was just talking about, as far as SCNI and then NESI. It's just following what I was explaining.
Okay. So how can we like turn this into like a conversation between an SENI user and an NESI user? So the SENI is like communicating something, a point, a construct, a concept, a pattern. And the NE is then unpacking it to seeing. Okay. Actually, okay. So from what I'm seeing here is the NI user has figured out this concept and is using all these like multiple data points to then communicate his concept and why it's a concept. And the NE user is able to take the concept and then like expand it out into what else it could be, or what else it could be used, where else it could be used.
So it's almost like this is one torus, and any user could be like, okay, so I see this concept, I see these things. Let me see how that applies to like other possibilities, other toruses.
Yeah.
And then it bounces around from like different contexts and stuff. That would be like a lead NE user. Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay, so let me X out of that. So this. See, I think that there's a lot of truth behind this.
Yeah.
But
There's definitely something here. definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just go back to this. So this is a really crappy little drawing, but it's the same similar thing where what's really fascinating here is the whole light thing, right? If you're looking inward, say right here, like I'm NISE, you see like a little dot on, and it's like a convex lens, and then like the concave lens is for
Yeah.
the user. Yeah, so you're seeing like a little dot, you're seeing the NI at the end of the tunnel, and then the outer skirts, that's where I would say is like the SE kind of zone, right? It's where like TE is and stuff, and like NI and like FI is like in the center, where
Yeah.
it's all where light is. And
Yeah.
then like with, does that kind of make sense a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just analyzing the photo just to.
Okay, and then like down here, consciousness, is over here on the right, and then there's sort of, if you look down into like say SI for this one thing, this one concrete like impression or whatever, but then you see like the expanding out of these sort of possibilities on the outer skirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, what
So
I'm trying to do is trying to find an example where this has happened to me.
okay.
So yeah, I can relate to it 100%. Like, when I'm in sleep and I'm trying to like analyze over the SI, I'll then like try to unpack an event and then be like, what could it mean? And then start going on all these tangents of like what this thing could be. Or like, just like the example of a past event with with a person, like if there was an issue with someone in my life, I would like go back and then start unpacking it. Like the NE would then start drawing all these possibilities or conclusions of like, what could that interaction mean? Like, why was there tension between me and this person? And then start like just expanding out into like all these different potential scenarios.
Yeah. I think,
Does that make sense?
because I kind of do that too, but I'm not sure, like in the way that you're talking about it, because you're not really branching out to like new contexts, are you? Like as far as like new possibilities, I guess like maybe new meanings of what something could be. But
Yeah, maybe what I'm doing is actually like a pseudo NI. So like, and it's like combining my NE and SI, right? So like the data's come in, the NE data's come in, and then with my SI, I'm actually trying to pinpoint what the issue could be with the person.
yeah, like looking for the specific detail, the specific fact.
Yeah, maybe that's my use of pseudo NI.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, it kind of looks something like this. I have like another drawing I think will help a little bit. It's kind of hard to fully explain it, but that's kind of those patterns there. Whoops. See, this is really basic, right? It's just like NI is this,
yeah,
and then NE is like branching out to other
multiple prisms.
SIs.
Yeah.
And the really interesting thing is, I don't think I have a drawing of this, but maybe I could kind of explain it a little bit, try to explain the best I can. I found that NI, and this is actually talking with my friend Jumper in the class. He kind of explains a little bit. NE, it's like you're kind of changing the resolution of like an image from like kind of more abstract to more concrete or something.
Okay.
And then you see that in a kind of different way, a different possibility. It connects to another sort of thing, right? So you see the connection between two like completely different contexts. You see like there's a content in that context that sort of ties them together, connecting the dots kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
You see a similarity between like
yeah.
So it's like, hey, yeah, and then NI and SE, what I've actually noticed is that I'm not able to change kind of the resolution of like an SI image. I have to like gather new SEs, new impressions, new like observations in order to figure out my NI or whatever. Right. So, but with an NE SI user, they're I think able to change the resolution of an image. Like
can you provide like, do you have like an example in yourself, like in that NI solution where you have to keep getting more impressions?
Yeah, because I'll be working on say like a problem or something in my mind. Say like these drawings, right? Where I have like this building block, this structure, this thing that I have in my mind. Like as far as a torus, I'm running simulations as far as like how it would look, how it would do this, how it would do that. And then I'm throwing in like SC, like I'm throwing in different impressions and different things I have from even from like my past, like new impressions for that mental model. And then I run a simulation, right? I'm like, okay, how does that actually work?
Huh.
So I'm applying like these little details into this big model that I'm building, the NI kind of thing.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. That's cool. So you're almost like having to force yourself to like kind of do like a pseudo NE in a sense. It's like, I don't know if this kind of makes sense, but so with NE, when you've got some data, it kind of then branches out and it just automatically just can find like all these possibilities. Whereas you actually have to physically like run all these simulations, like run all these like individual like NE strands to then pinpoint.
Yeah, I think, well, the thing is that like, I think it's slightly different because of the NI situation. It's like the same context, the same box, the same thing. Whereas NE is like, hey, how can I branch this out to like different boxes? How can I branch this out to like different things and just have fun with it in a sense?
Yeah.
And it means like reworking with the
Bounce
same
around.
thing. Oh, it's like my favorite blankie. Like it's my favorite blankie. I'm gonna work on the same mental model over and over. And he is like, hey, how can I take this thing and make it all crazy and go off to something like
how can we make it different? Let's make it new. Let's look at a different way of approaching it.
Yeah, and I think I really look up to like, you and sort of like save your NE and being able to do that because I think it's just such a cool skill to be able to do that. And from some of my drawings, some of my things, I found that like an SI NE user, what they do is they change the focal point. And actually talking with someone in the class, I think it was Heather. Yeah, Heather, she talked about like changing like the focal point of the SI so that the impression kind of like, it gets like a little dimmer or becomes more like solid.
Okay.
And then it creates like a new connection off the side. And so like for me as an SC, and I have to literally find a whole new SC impression in order for things, I have to go gather that.
Yeah, so it's like reverse, huh? It's like doing a reverse.
Yeah, it's different. It's like for you, you just change the focus and then it's like, boom, like this connection. It means you have to gather a whole new one. So something like that.
But the beauty of the NI is like you've like, once you've captured all the data, you can then like really narrow in and actually create something that is tangible. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you actually present a system. It's like, hey, this is like what you're doing now. Like with your Word doc, you've got like all these like things kind of laid out into like a whole structured session, and it all ties back to the torus.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, it's really interesting. But honestly, organizing things like this, because I'm Blast Play. Yeah. And maybe it's not because I'm Blast Play, but I just have a hard time like really like say organizing this whole like kind of lesson and all these details and stuff. I just want to kind of go out there and Blast Play it. Like I just want to like start without organizing and really narrowing, like doing that.
Yeah. So was it actually a struggle to like actually start this document and start like gathering information?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Extremely. Yeah. Wow. No, it was very, very hard because it's like internal organization. It's internal, like building my own system for myself.
So maybe that is sleep. That's probably sleep then.
What's that?
That's probably sleep then. Like having to organize.
Building it from yourself in a sense. Yeah. Like
interesting.
Yeah, it's like a system for yourself. It's building, energizing, working with yourself. I don't want to do that. I just want to skip.
You just want to get it out. You just want to talk. Hey guys, I've got this cool thing. Just throw it out.
Yeah, in my mind, like if I just let it do its thing, I'd be like, okay, how can I talk with Jonathan? And literally just like throw all my drawings into like a bucket. And that's why I always do. Like I'll have like a Google Doc where I have something where I find out like these ideas, I figure new things out, and I just throw it all into a bucket. I'm like, hey, let me put it in this doc. Let me make a big old list, all this information. And I'm not even gonna reference it later. I'm just gonna have it all there so that it helps me process it. It helps me have it all in one place. So if I do want to reference it later, then it's like, oh crap, I have to sort through all this information, but at least I still have it. At least
you've at least captured it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's kind of similar to what I do. Like I've got a Microsoft OneNote where I've like kind of systematized or like organized like my information, like well, just with anything really, any kind of observations, any ideas I've got, I just kind of throw it into one and I kind of organize it and kind of like reference it and title it. And I'll like every now and then I'll just add bits to like each bucket, so to speak.
That's awesome. But I think for you keep it probably pretty organized, right? Where you
have like I am semi decent at doing the SI, but sometimes it's like I stress myself out on how I want to organize it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
SI is a stressful function. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I think for everyone.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wonder how the saviors, SI saviors go with that kind of stuff. If they can just naturally, like, they love organizing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard that, you know, they say even with SI saviors, it's stressful because it's like, hey, I gotta like really work this out. And yeah, it's more natural, but still pretty stressful where it's like.
Yeah. And I guess the world we live in now, because the world we live in is quite chaotic as it is. Like, we're all just creatures of habit. We're always like, our attention is always being demanded by things and devices and phones and people. And
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, okay. And this, yeah, this is kind of go into super theory kind of land, but
nice.
So, okay. So kind of following the torus pattern and shape, I've kind of thought through, and this is just me like coming up with this sort of theory is like, hey, you know, as far as the light, like with, sorry, let me pull up that drawing again. Okay, so I was thinking a lot of like, okay, what does the light look like? Peeking through these lenses, like what does that kind of look like? And so NE, as far as like one of the drawings I showed, it's like, you know, this area is lit up around this whole lens, right? You remember that?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, and then SE is like with the convex lens. See, it's kind of like, it's just around the lens.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It would be way out here. The light would be way out here.
Yeah.
And then for NI, it'll be like a little dot like in the middle. Whereas with SI, it's like this dot is a lot closer to the conscious observer. And you literally change the focus point of that SI. So it kind of can be dimmer or it could be more concrete, right? So it's like a thicker light. So like this, right? As far as SI being like a little thicker, and then NI being a lot like smaller, and then SE being like smaller than NE. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, kind of. Okay.
Where are you confused?
So from this, so this is like this convex or this like funnel type thing is the torus, right? Like it's the outer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all around the torus pattern. Yeah.
Okay, and like so the outer sphere is just like all the NE, all the just random. As you get closer in, it's more like narrowed down and more concrete, right?
Yeah, it's like where the light's shining though. The light's shining like on the outer edges over here, like around the torus. It would be like NE's like way out here, and then SE like the light is around the outer edges of this. So
yes, it's like tangible. Yeah. Something you can actually see, and then SI is kind of like narrow, and NI is like the core, like
really small. Yeah.
It's
like way over here. So it's kind of like a spectrum, right? And then you have, so something like that. I have another drawing that that goes over it. So this is kind of how I see it. It's kind of like with the other drawings I have, where this is like the convex lens. This is the concave lens.
Yeah.
SE is kind of like this, where the light's shining on the outer edges. I don't really have it drawn here, but it's like the outer edges.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like following the similar pattern, right? It's just like kind of showing that, hey, this is where the light is. This is where the light's shining. This is where consciousness is picking up on these things. And then it follows like the torus, right? And the torus is the outer edges and stuff. Does that kind of make sense? It's usually like the light receiving. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just sorry. I'm just like, I'm analyzing it. I'm just trying to, I'm sleeping on it.
Do you have any questions around it?
Or? Yeah, just go back to that one. Yeah. Okay. So by this example, actually, yeah, good. The other one, the concave and convex with S. Yeah. Okay. So by this example, the SE user is gathering, the information is already quite concrete, right? Like they're looking at facts, they're looking at solid information, and therefore able to like really like narrow in and pinpoint, like almost like predict with the NI, right?
Yeah, they have to like gather more SE, like more information.
Yeah. So in this, like NI is like a lot more like narrowed in and like to the like, well, not to the point, but it can really like pinpoint like what is.
Yeah.
Whereas
to be able to come to conclusions like that.
Yeah. Whereas the SI is not as accurate.
SI is just like the sort of detail taken in from reality, right? So you're like, going over an old sort of impression in your mind, like maybe a memory or something. It's like your favorite blankie, right? You're going over the same thing. This is like your savior. So it's not like it's not accurate. It's just
It's
as
different.
far as, I don't know how to best explain it. I was more or less like trying to focus on where the light is shining,
Yeah.
and like spectrum of light, like Ni being really small, Si being a little like thicker as far as the radius.
Okay. Yeah. So it kind of like the picture of SI would be like more of like what am I going with this? Kind of like an object, whereas the Ni would be like the concept of the object.
Yeah, and this is one of the ways I kind of thought about explaining maybe a concept versus a fact or detail. This maybe not the best way, but I kind of thought about it a little bit. I thought about like when you build out an argument, you have like a main conclusion and then you have premises under that, like to support the main conclusion.
Yep.
I want to talk about around that.
Yep.
Yeah. So like you have your main conclusion, which is like the abstract, thing or whatever, like concept, and then you have the facts underneath to support that like main concept. That's kind of how I see it.
Okay.
Like the details that supports the bigger picture.
It's kind of like like the content versus context type thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the SI is the content and the NI is the context. Wait.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. Well, NE and NI is like kind of more context, like overarching umbrella.
Yeah.
And then the SI is like more just details, facts, kind of just more concrete and grounded in reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So this is something I've been thinking. I think it's just following the light, right? And just where the light goes and what it does, and just kind of gives a lot of answers. And
yeah,
probably some truth behind it.
This is great.
And I actually have some more drawings on my main laptop, but the battery like died or something.
Damn.
So, okay, so I have some things around masculine and feminine.
Feminine and masculine functions. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't been able to like fully kind of figure, because the really weird thing with like, I think, you're kinesthetic audio, right?
Audio kinesthetic, MF.
Yeah.
Masculine S and then feminine TE.
Yeah, I've been asking some different questions in the group and bouncing ideas around, and I almost think that the modalities are maybe just tied with the observers, but yeah. I'd have to ask like David and Shannon at some point.
Yeah, sure.
Because they have the deciders kind of attached to the modality. Yeah, let me just. Okay.
Awesome.
So as far as the masculinity and femininity of a function, I see it as like feminine having like a hollow center, whereas like masculine has kind of like a nucleus, I guess you could say, right?
Nucleus. What's a nucleus?
A nucleus is just like the main center of like a cell or something. Like it's like the main.
Okay. Yeah.
What is a?
Thanks, Google. Okay. Right, like the center.
Close nuclear membrane. It contains the DNA. So it's kind of like the center of a cell.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
That's kind of how I would. Yeah. So I feel like with the functions and with all these things that as you kind of get like more separated, it's kind of more like feminine in a sense, and then more enclosed with the torus, like it actually has a center. And I didn't get all my drawings around feminine and like masculine, but I find that like feminine is like missing the center, whereas like masculine is actually having the center.
Right. So is it kind of like it's more grounded? It has a center, like a centerpiece to keep it grounded and to keep it like.
Yeah. Kind of like let me see if I can show some things to try to. Okay, so this is kind of, it's really interesting. A blood cell kind of follows the torus shape.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like that donut,
It
right?
does, huh?
Yeah, and so in essence, I mean, I think that the blood cell versus a brain cell, if we go over here, and this is totally like super theory, like woo-woo land, but the brain cell has like a kind of a nucleus, right? And so it has a center, and you know, space sensing and thinking is more kind of grounded. It's more like masculine-esque, right? And NF is more like intuition and feeling. It's more like woo-woo. It's more like wavy. It's waves versus like lines and vectors and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is like a brain cell. It has a nucleus, more like, you know, more masculine in nature.
Yeah.
And a blood cell is kind of like feeling. It's more like, you know, what you guys think of, kind of
Ah.
like it's more feminine in nature.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's really roughly two different kinds of cells in our bodies.
It's kind of like, you know,
And
feeling versus thinking in a way.
what's that?
It's kind of like feeling versus thinking in a way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's thinking and then feeling.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
that's the way I kind of see it. I
That's
got
cool.
right here, like brain cell thinking truth, seeking truth, symbol for separation, and then blood cells like feeling, you know, love, symbol of unity. For unity.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I have a couple other drawings I don't have in this doc, but you know, maybe at some point I'll be able to share them.
Awesome.
So this is kind of a brief example of, and this is something honestly I've been trying to figure out and work through. Wait, let me see if I. Oh, I didn't save the image. All right, I thought I did. Well, anyway, so you know how in like the drawings I was showing how, hey, you have the convex lens, you have the concave lens.
Yeah.
Well, the way that I'm starting to kind of see that is that those drawings were of masculine sensory.
Okay.
And with feminine sensory, I actually kind of see it as having like a center with a hole in the middle.
Okay.
And so it kind of changes the drawing where you're kind of looking into the sensory in order to kind of come to these conclusions. So it's like me being tester and sort of being, you know, visual spatial, because I know like kinesthetic and audio is more like, you know, outside spatial awareness, whereas like being being tester visual, I'm more like spatially, visually aware in my own head, like creating images and stuff in my own mind.
Okay. So with like, because like feminine is determined like by it's more movable, right? It's kind of flowy compared to like masculine, which is more solid.
Yeah. So that this is kind of like symbolic of that flowiness, right? Where things flow through it literally because it has a center to it. And the masculine one doesn't. It's literally solid versus not being solid.
So therefore, like, because these are like lenses, right? Like, and the lenses purpose is to like bend the light. Because there's a hole, like it's bending differently, or is it kind of like the light is flowing differently?
I could be wrong, definitely with a lot of these things. With this, I think that the light is kind of like in the center of the sensory kind of.
Okay.
And you're kind of like looking and observing around that, like in a 3D kind of way, in order to make sense of, you know, seeing the light in different ways, right? In order to build up that end, the intuition. Whereas with the masculine sensory, it's like you have to go kind of a distance in a sense, right? So let me try to. This is really hard to explain. Let me. What was? Okay, it was this one. So I think that this is like masculine sensory. This is masculine SI, masculine SE.
Yeah.
And kind of have to go a certain distance, like build up, hey, I have this SE impression here, I have this SE impression here, and then I eventually get to that NI. And then here it's like, hey, I have one SI right here, and then I have another SI over here off the sides, and then I find the NE connection between the SIs. And with feminine, I think that it's like you have a center in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know exactly how it looks, but I think that it's kind of all condensing in within like one main kind of sensory, and you're kind of seeing like around things, around images, around stuff in order to like get closer to that NI within one sensory. Well, it's not within one sensory, but it's within like one main, um, like
It's like, yeah, you're trying to bend the sensory in order to like kind of like prove the N. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah. Well,
you're working.
that's definitely how I would explain how I do it with masculine NI, where I
Yeah.
really mold and shape the sensory in order to kind of try to fit in within different like models and concepts.
Yeah. So if you were seeing like the SE, or you were gathering the SE through like this convex, is this convex?
Yeah, this is convex.
Convex lens, you kind of, it's almost like you're breaking the rules of how the SE works. You know what I mean? Like you're bending it around.
Yes.
You're moving it the way you want it to be. That works for your NI.
It's so I think that's one of the things I kind of really like about feminine SE in a sense, or feminine sensory.
I think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you're breaking the rules, right? You're really imaginative with it. The hard part is sometimes getting that to work in objective reality. But if you can, then it's like, whoa, that's really, really innovative. That's really
cool. And like I'd love to see like the differences between, an ESFP that's got feminine sensory and yourself that's got like the NI, the masculine NI at the top, that SE at the bottom. Like, like the way I see it is like you are trying to like bend the sensory in order to like kind of prove or like make your patterns or like NI points. You're trying to like, it's almost like the Matrix. Like you're trying to just bend reality.
Oh my gosh. I cannot tell you how many times I've thought of that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just like having my own sort of wireframed like imagination box or land or whatever in my own head. And it's like a hologram or like a holograph or something. It's like the projection. It's this whole like imaginative real like thing in your brain, and you're like it's like an extra disrespect to the outer world.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm already demon-esque, but it's like I'm hyper demon-esque because I'm masculine N.
Yeah. And it's like you actually want to move the world, but it's like the world is quite masculine, so
yeah,
there must be a struggle as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's interesting. And like, because the way I see it for me is like with my SI, it's like my sensory is masculine, and I'm using my NE to kind of work around the like. So when I'm faced with a problem, like the problem is like in the way. It's like something that's stuck. So my NE is like water trying to like flow around this solid object in order to like figure out like where's the weak point, where can I actually attack this thing and then actually bring it down.
That makes a lot of sense.
Super interesting. So you actually your play then, like your external world is feminine, like your T and your SE. Whereas for me it's the same. My NE and T are both feminine. So it's like both of our external worlds are quite like very like we just want to move. It's very movable, right? It's just we want to bend things. But I think I'm curious to like understand the differences between like the SE and the NE in that sense.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
I think that's something we're going to talk about another time because
that's really hard.
It's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. It's really interesting. Okay,
anyway, so, back to your drawings.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another thing I've been kind of working through. It's not like a super concrete thing, but in the development of sorry, let me
yep.
Yeah, let me okay, creating the seed of life. Okay. So I've been watching and looking at a lot of different drawings on development of consciousness. This is kind of the seed of life, that's what they call it. And it's kind of like the origin of his existence,
Okay.
Where you actually have this dot, it starts at the center, but then it starts moving out to the outer edges. And so like the dot it moves here, and then it moves to another point, then moves to another point, then moves to another point, and then it eventually develops like the seed.
Right. So this is the origin of life, right?
Yeah, the origin of life, the origin of existence, you know, God, consciousness, like the starting of everything kind of thing.
Okay.
Let me see if I have. Okay, so this is another one, right? It starts
Mm.
here, and then it does 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it goes all the way up into and this tree thing. I forgot what it's called. Benjamin actually shared this with me before, but that's like the final. That's like the biggest and deepest thing, right? Whereas this is the most simplest. This is the most complex, and this is called Metatron's cube.
That's an awesome name.
I know, right? But in all honesty, though, I relate to this the most. If I were to put my masculine NI in like one word or one shape or one thing, it would be this.
Okay. So
literally this.
let's unpack this a bit. So from the single circle, how can we relate this to like, could you relate this to like humans, like from life to,
Yeah.
yeah? So the single circle would be like what, when we're born, we're just or is it go beyond, is it deeper than that?
So this is kind of why I've been pulling up. So that, here it is, like kind of the embryo and stuff.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the
That's
development.
Right. Yeah, because we're cells that just constantly keeps like expanding out.
Exactly. And
Right.
it just keeps on expanding. So
okay, and that's just the pattern on the left.
yeah, something along those lines as far as
Okay.
that pattern and the nucleus and all that. It's really
Cool.
interesting.
So we start off as a single cell, we expand out, we expand into this cool pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
Metatron's cube.
Yeah, and with Metatron's cube, from what I understand, it has all the different like main shapes that you can have, all the different shapes you can have like in the universe. You can fit that within the cube, right? And shape it and mold it, and you know, so you can have like a triangle, you can have like this octagon or
yeah, true.
yeah, and so because I'm visual spatial in my mind, right? And well, you're masculine.
SI and
You're masculine. And
FI. Nah. Masculine SI.
I'm sorry. Yeah. But for me, like this is my inner world. It's those images, it's those shapes, those patterns, and I think that this is really the core of.
So that's how you see it, right? Is that how you see like your inner world, like your NI?
The thing is that it's hard to say that I see this, but it's more or less like I've reflected, I've kind of meditated, I've thought through this a lot of ways. And I feel like if I were to explain my NI in one word or one shape, it would be this. Where it's just like this encompasses everything as far as like everything I see, or it's like an unconscious thing. It's like the everything kind of thing.
So would you say it's like how your NI moves like around in order to pinpoint certain?
Yeah, I think so. Like it moves from different connections, like vectors and points, and it'll shoot off across and sort of try and make those connections around other things. And at the same time, I'm kind of creating these images, these things I can reference for later. And so it's really kind of abstract, and it's just all these different things that make up concepts.
Okay.
So it's weird.
So this is like the NI is like, it's like this conceptual shape you've built.
Yeah,
it's like you can just take that and put it anywhere, and then like work out how this thing is.
Yeah, it's like I try to have like this sort of model, this shape, this pattern that I can use and perfect, and that I can reuse that over and over and over, like across different situations. But like, you know, trying to make that as perfect as possibly can, chiseling it, you know, making sure the connections are all intertwined, like trying to make that as solid as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Like on the edges, and it's really hard to explain, but
it's really cool, man. It's great stuff. Like,
yeah,
the fact you've made all these connections, you've like just from like OP, like, you know, you've gathered this data, you've then been able to understand yourself, like you're more aware, you're more conscious of yourself, and now like you're actually expanding what you know into like some kind of system and all these patterns, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that I did this for several months, and then at some point I'm just like, oh, I'm just kind of done with it. I'm kind of tired with it, because I realized that this didn't really help me type all that much better. It kind of helped me understand things a little more fundamental level, but not a whole lot. And so right now I'm like a lot more motivated to get the typing accuracy up a lot higher, because it's hard to apply all these theories into reality sometimes.
Yeah.
It's you kind of think about and like mull over, and some of it's kind of cool. But
It's something, I guess it's something that's like your FI is really on board with, right? You want to keep exploring it. It's kind of like this thing in the back of your mind you keep wanting to like build upon.
Yeah, it felt that way really strongly for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then when I realized that, well, it's actually not getting me like where I want to go in reality, as far as being able to type people more accurately, as far as like understanding OP in like a very concrete reality-based way.
Yeah.
I kind of know of a lot of drawings and stuff. I actually haven't worked on this stuff a whole lot for a little bit. So
It's pretty cool. And it's like you're almost trying to like uncover like humanity in a sense. Like we're trying to draw these patterns from like using OP as like as leverage to be able to like further uncover like humankind and like, you know, where we came from and the origins of life. And
totally. No, I mean,
so interesting, man.
Yeah, and the thing is one of my main drivers and motivations for doing all this and going to these drawings is trying to figure out what are the next layers, what are the next pieces of the puzzle, right? That goes beyond 512 types.
Yeah.
If I can figure out as far as like the drawings, the models, and the shapes, then I'm like, okay, I could be able to predict where the next patterns are going to be.
That's cool, man.
And yeah, so it didn't really fully work out quite yet.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome. So look, I think might have to just like kind of wrap it up a little bit. Okay. Is there any like honestly I want to talk about all this stuff in more detail. I think we're gonna have to. I reckon we should just do separate sessions on like one particular lesson, or like even like, you know, uncovering more of just in particular animals. Just deep dive into like just play, or deep dive into sleep, or any of the animals, and just try to unpack them more. Because seriously, there's so much information, man. It's amazing.
Well, the thing is,
like,
though, honestly, as far as applying a lot of the stuff to like more depth regarding the drawings, I don't know how much deeper I can kind of go with. I can go like a little deeper, but probably not like a whole lot.
Yeah.
But as far as like just talking about the animals and functions, all those things in general, like, yeah, I'm totally down to kind of do that. But
just brainstorm and just work out and see like what patterns can relate to like the animals or functions even more. That.
So you want to go deeper into the drawings?
Oh, like no, I'm just like.
What are you thinking?
In particular, maybe like each animal, or and honestly, each part of OP. Like we could just take one part, like one animal, and just unpack that, and just like discover the differences, like how we see them, and just like whatever patterns we see, like it. I don't know. It could likely relate to like some of these like drawings and patterns that you've got.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dude. Like I'm perfectly okay with like talking more about OP and like doing these as far as like talking about the animals and all this stuff. But as far as like the application and talking about like the drawings in more detail, like I can't do, I don't think, that much more.
Yeah, that's fine. This is like something you've just kind of like, it's a pattern you're seeing emerge, right? It's like you're still trying to explore it and understand it. And
yeah. I mean, and I'm not even really actively kind of doing that right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
But this is a lot of stuff that I've uncovered before, and you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I actually don't have that much more. But do you have to like go, or you want to just?
Well, no. Is there any like last like things you wanted to cover off, or any like other lessons, or like animals, functions, modalities,
yeah, I mean,
temperaments?
So, yeah, I can just go like really briefly. I mean, like right here, the egg of life. What's really fascinating about this is kind of development of consciousness, like I was showing. But there's 8 functions and there's 8 sort of eggs, right? And so I think that there's maybe a connection there as far as like, you know, whatever sort of eggs that you have the most light on, or whatever, you have more light on one side or the other.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then as far as the 8 maybe some.
That's cool.
But and then how much? Okay, this is literally basically the end, and I was just gonna talk. One sec. And that's just another Metatron's cube.
Man, so much to like explore.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as the development of like the basic kind of functions, I think that like TI is sort of like its origins. This is called the Verseil's Pisces or
It
something.
looks almost like the Harry Potter logo, the Death Eaters or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
If you just shift the triangle around on the circles, it's like the Harry Potter logo.
It's really interesting. Let me see real quick. And then this is like the Cedo life, but I almost think this could be potentially extroverted thinking. I don't know. It's just like an extra. It's like more circles that are associated with it.
So if it is extroverted thinking, like what would the circles represent, like, and the triangle?
Well, I think that it's more or less like more. It's more or less like the association of non-self, right? Because it's not just associated like one or two circles, it's associated with like a bunch. That could be more tribe-esque, where it's like, hey, this pattern, this shape or whatever is not just rooted in like, one or two things. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
The other one was like in less. This one's like 7 different circles that's all encompassed.
It's almost like a spectrum as well. Like,
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I would say
it.
so. So yeah, I mean, honestly, that's pretty much the end. I had I mean, you don't have to include this like in the thing, but I had some that I really wanted to. This is a really crappy drawing, but it's just regarding like feeling and thinking, and then feeling being more in like waves, thinking being more in like vectors and lines, energy versus information.
Yeah.
And then see how like the feeling is sort of, I think, kind of goes back into something like this, whereas thinking is like vectors, connections.
Yeah, it's like logical, right? It's like structured. It's like very kind of linear. Whereas it like feeling is very like it's not structured. It's not logical. It's just kind of like a wave, like you said, like an energy wave.
Exactly. Yeah. As far as like quantum mechanics and stuff, I mean, like particle versus wave, particle wave duality stuff.
Man, quantum mechanics, that's something I'd love to like understand and like learn and just figure out how to relate that to like OP and humans and life. And
well, yeah, no, I've studied a little bit as well. And what I found is I think that when they get really microscopic with doing their experiments, I think that they actually, they're like stripping away layers of reality or whatever. Because I think that like, if you think about it, at least this is the way I kind of conceptualize it, where like feeling and that sort of thing is like the first dimension of reality or whatever. And then like thinking is another dimension, and like space and then time. These are all like different dimensions of reality. And I think that when they do quantum mechanics, they go really microscopic. They're really almost like stripping away like time and space. So they're seeing things more fundamentally, and so it has these like weird behaviors, these weird things, and it's just like really conscious observer and like just like particles and just waves without like other variables, other things. So
far out. Yeah, man, like it's mind blowing, quantum mechanics. Like it's literally like does it relate to like quantum computing as well? Do you know much about that?
I don't know very much about quantum computing. I would assume that it's something regarding like, I don't know, AI even, or maybe like more. Quantum is like really minute. It's really like microscopic, right?
Yeah. It kind of like, from what I mind, like very brief understanding it, it's like kind of incorporates like biology into like technology.
Oh, with quantum computing?
Quantum computing, yeah. It's like more variables for each. Like if you understand computing, like with the ones and zeros, bits and bytes, it's like each bit is almost like, it can be more than one, if that makes sense. So computers is very linear. It's like very on and off type thing. So it's, you got like ones and zeros. That's basically what computers are, just billions of ones and zeros just processing. But quantum mechanics say like it's every 1 and 0 can be a 1 and a 0. So it's like there's like new perspectives and like multiple
there's like more potentialities.
Yeah. It's almost like it has the potential to be living in a sense.
That's really crazy.
It's intense, man. It's something that I need to get into. But look, dude, so much info.
Yeah.
It's
Can I
awesome.
show you this last drawing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm like just want to get it all out there because
Yeah,
literally.
no, it's fun. Do it. You
Yeah.
need to share your thoughts.
So this is kind of rough, but I noticed that with like sort of building up of like SC, SI, like these lenses and stuff, you literally can add on like say 2 triangles, you make SC, and then SI, you kind of have the triangles go like that.
Okay.
And then sort of N is scenarios, right? So I'm not sure if I drew this out. I didn't maybe show you, but you can have the conscious observer be in the center, and they're observing like, you know, a scenario going on around them, around this. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, where it's like you're looking outward, and then this is like you create, you're like in the universe, you're looking, you know, kind of inward in a sense.
So is that just N specifically, or like more NE or NI, or?
I don't have like NI or NE associated with this specific part, but it was really interesting though. Just like if you add on another triangle, you have 3 triangles versus like 2 triangles, then you literally it has like connection with like the universe or whatever. It has like a hollow center.
Yeah, it's like incorporating everything, able like to kind of see all perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like this is really weird, but if I'm sort of doing that consciousness thing or like going the dots, say like T is like this, if I go off and start doing like SC, then SI, then NI, and then NE, because this SC is like following this, right? It kind of looks like the convex lens. This is like the concave lens. And then NI, if you think about like SC filling in the NI, or finishing the NI context, you can take this thing and put it in here and try and match it so it fits there.
Yeah.
SI, you're trying to kind of match that with like an NE, or to create like that conceptual.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, so I don't know why that kind of showed up, but I just created that. I'm like, well, yeah. So that's
awesome.
And this finished pattern like this is kind of like the seed of life or whatever. It follows the pattern like
it kind of relates back to the torus, right? Like the external of the sphere type shape.
Yeah, it does. Exactly. Yeah. And it's kind of like similar-ish to that as far as like some, I don't know. Anyway,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
dude, thanks so much for sharing all that. Like that was some awesome patterns you've like kind of worked out from life, from OP, from topology, and just like kind of bring it all together, like narrowing it right down into like this basically like how you see, or how your NI perceives like all this information. It's really interesting, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think, you know, I'm glad that you're going to put something together with this, whatever you do with it.
Yeah.
It's like, honestly, if you didn't initiate this, I probably was just going to like, just not share it, because it takes a while to like organize stuff a little bit. And
I know, dude. Like when I saw your interview with Benjamin, I was like, holy shit, like, dude, your mind is just full of like all this crazy, like abstract shit. Yeah. And I loved it. Like my NE was like, holy shit, this is amazing. So like, yeah, I needed to like just unpack it more and just like get into your brain and just like share your patterns, man, because it's super cool.
Yeah, I would say that this is probably about like 80% to like around there of all the stuff I have. So I mean, I just have like, you know, like I don't know, 10-15% left or whatever. But you know, maybe like in 6 months or like 12 months or something, maybe we could do.
Dude, 100%. Like I'd like to I'll rewatch this. I'm gonna like pull out bits, and maybe we can like unpack other things further and talk about, you know, related to animals or functions or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Even life.
Whatever you want to do. Like if you want to add on some extra little pieces to that before you put it on YouTube, like I'm willing to try to make things more clear, or you know, whatever.
I'll see. I'm gonna watch it back and I'll see like what I can do with it, and you know, well, yeah, I'll figure it out. I've got to have a bit of a play with it and see what I can do.
Okay.
Or I'll just fuck it all in. Sorry?
you're probably tired from all this, like whoa, all this.
Honestly,
shit.
like my mind is definitely blown, and like I just need to sleep process the shit out of this now.
Yeah.
That's me,
Yeah.
man. Like I'll just consume, and then I have to like then just enter sleep and just like, okay, think about all this stuff for hours.
Real quick, did you type Gretchen or?
No, I haven't watched anything since Tony Hawk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't even know who she is. So I've not watched anything at all.
Oh, okay.
What are you seeing? I'm curious.
You want to know?
I'm not going to try to type it. It's already too late. So
Really?
well, I don't think I have time, man. It's like 2 days away.
Okay, because I think I got her type spot on. Maybe.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
is it? Tell me. I won't spoil anyone, or I won't tell anyone.
So I think she's my twin type.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
I think they found, and I don't know, like if they're trying to send me a message or something, but I think I literally spent several hours trying to type her, and
Yeah.
I tried to not type her as me, and I typed her as me. So.
Damn. What's your process? I'm just gonna stop the recording. One sec.
Oh, okay.
I might just do a sign out as well. Oh fuck it, I'll just stop it. Who cares?